pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Wow, okay. Do you want to do the read? You want me to?
Yeah, I can do this. Augusta Township's public hearing on the application for solar energy facility exemption certificate held at Lincoln Golden Ages Senior Center, 8970 Whitaker Road, Ypsilanti, Michigan, 48197, was called to order by Todd Waller at 6:03. And we did the pledge of allegiance. So now we need a roll.
All righty, Adams, missing. Buick,
Here.
Gipper. Here. Gunsey,
Here.
Green.
Here.
Crane.
Here.
Yeah, here halfway. All right, public comment opens at, we'll open up the public comment. Remember that these public comments right now are for agenda items only. Has anybody got anything?
Well, it's for the solar
For the
energy
solar,
facility.
yeah, this is
Yeah.
due to the solar, information about the solar energy.
Hi. Hi, I'm Wendy Albers, 9877 Torrey Road. As I understand it, Whitetail is asking for a determination on a tax request based on nameplate rating instead of the typical property tax valuation known as ad valorem. If not done so already, please provide a clear explanation of the difference in revenue between the two methods of taxation. Please ask yourself why a company, any company, would agree to pay more in taxes than what is required of them. This is my understanding of the tax revenue within the packet. My experiences have been that there is always something in it for the company versus the clients or township in this case. York Township was practically mesmerized by the additional funds and the ease of which the applicant would remove some of the paperwork burdens from the township if the board approved. They would not even consider a moratorium to further review to see if this practice has been done elsewhere in the country and what the results were. Here's what I encourage you not to make the same mistake as York Township. According to our assessor, if you grant the applicant's request, it will not prevent the applicant from changing the nameplate capacity either up or down based on megawatt generation, whether that's due to lack of sunshine, or if they want to remove panels, or if Michigan has an extremely sunny year. What if the megawatt production increases? Will our tax revenue from Whitetail also increase? What if something changes to the property tax structure in Michigan to our favor, and then we are locked into this nameplate tax base for 20 years? This new tax is based solely on their energy generation. So I ask the board, if you approve this resolution, please safeguard the township and put a clause in this resolution that states if the applicant reduces the nameplate generation or it increases, then that allows the board to reopen the tax and consider reinstating an ad valorem tax structure on the parcels of land or changing the structure to favor the township. Thank you for adding the financial breakdown to the meeting agenda. Residents should have this kind of information as early as possible so they can research the financial differences of the tax implications as soon as it is available. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Wendy.
You know, Todd, I should have started with this, so I will read, and then did you want me to go ahead and read your letter, Chris, and then if you have something else to add, or did you want to?
Yeah, it's up to you guys. I can kind of hit some high points, or we can read my memo, I guess, whatever you guys would like.
Well, go ahead, we'll let you
Well,
take it away.
hang on, we already started for public comment, so
Oh,
I'm sure there's a
yeah.
couple.
Is there
that may
somebody else that has,
have something to say?
oh, sorry.
Yeah, good evening. Robert Garrett, Bunton Road. I'm here tonight kind of in two capacities. One is as a planning commissioner who worked on the solar project from the beginning all the way through the end. I don't know how long we were at it, 2 or 3 years. We worked hard to try to get it to be the best that it could be, from a physical point of view with setbacks and things like that. During the process, one of the things that we asked them, I believe, one of the commissioners, it wasn't me, but they were asked, would you be applying for any tax exemptions? And the answer was no. So I think that that's something that gives me pause now to where we're at. Now, looking at it from a resident and just looking at the information, and I want to state right up, I don't know the assessor, I've never met him, so this is not to cast aspersions on anyone, 'cause I don't know enough on how to calculate this. But looking at what's in the packet is all I can comment on. And the assessor's memo states that the first few years of tax revenue would be less if the exemption is granted, but taxes would be larger over the 20-year life of the exemption, which would be roughly $11.5 million for the payment in lieu of taxes versus $8.7 million under the ad valorem tax estimate, the general way that taxes are assessed, that I guess we all pay based on that. Just looking at it on its face, to me, this doesn't make sense. Why would the government, why would the state of Michigan government take the time to create a tax exemption, run it through the legislature, and then why would a company apply for it and to pay more taxes?
Exactly.
On its face, it doesn't make sense to me. And this is where I'm saying, do we have the right information? Are we calculating it correctly? Again, not casting aspersions on anyone because I can't calculate it, but that doesn't make sense to me. In the packet also was a Senate Fiscal Agency bill analysis. So this is from the state of Michigan. And on page 2, in the paragraph that said brief rationale, it says the tax valuation has been inconsistent and contentious, resulting in litigation. This is paraphrasing, it's a much longer paragraph, but this burdens local governments and delays build out of renewable energy in the state. To me, that's the key phrase in the whole paragraph. Delays build out of renewable energy in the state. In other words, it's slowing down the state administration's initiatives, which is to implement solar and in this case, and other initiatives that they're after. It's been suggested that a payment in lieu of taxes be established to standardize the tax valuation of these facilities. On that same page 2, under the fiscal impact, and again, this is somewhat paraphrasing, it says the bills likely would have an indeterminate, although likely negative, fiscal impact on local governments of unknown magnitude. So the legislature created this tax exemption, and then the Senate Fiscal Agency did a bill analysis of it. I assume that's something that probably would run any bill through that maybe has some sort of financial implication, don't know for sure. But it says, although likely negative fiscal impact on local government. It says because the decision to create a solar energy district would be voluntary, a qualified facility likely would be responsible for facilities tax that was less than property taxes that otherwise would be owed by the facility. And again, the key word in that phrase, in that sentence, that part of that paragraph is voluntary. So this is not something we have to do. And then if we're doing this based on nameplate production at the 82 megawatts, what happens if 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, 15 years from now, the entity that they're selling the power to, which is Lansing, I believe, Board and Light, Power and Light, whatever the name of it is, they don't need the capacity anymore, so they reduce the output of it. Does that mean the payment in lieu of taxes that's calculated on the nameplate? Again, this is something that I don't know, so I'm asking a question. And they're only putting out 60 megawatts instead of 80, does that payment reduce? Or does the payment stay the same because the nameplate rating is 82 megawatts? They can produce 82 whether they're producing it or not. There seems to be a lot of questions here that I'm not sure have been fully answered. And maybe you all have better information than what's just produced in the packet and what I'm able to read. Didn't do a ton of research outside of it. Like I say, that fiscal bill analysis was right in the packet, what was issued by the township. Again, just seems like a lot of questions. In my mind, if there's not something pushing this or some reason to do it, maybe tabling it and digging into it a little bit deeper might be worthwhile. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Does anybody else got anything on, would like to add to this?
Deborah Ross, 6609 Mylan, Oakville Road. I don't know a ton about this, but you don't know if they'll even be here in 20 years. It could go under, so why would you ever give up your original tax base? That's just my thought. And there's a reason they're applying, and they're not gonna tell you the truth. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else got anything else? All right, close public comment. Yeah, all right, we'll close the public comment there. Where we at now? You wanna, Chris, you wanna come up here and explain what we got going on, and kinda answer some of these questions?
Good evening, everyone. So yeah, what you're voting on tonight is whether to tax this in a payment in lieu of taxes, so a tax that replaces the regular ad valorem taxes, or to stick with the regular ad valorem taxes. Payment in lieu of taxes is just like it sounds, they pay one
Yeah,
payment.
Can you introduce yourself to the people
Oh,
first?
sorry. Chris Goki, I'm the Township Assessor. So payment in lieu of taxes would be every July 1st, the tax would be levied, it'd be $7,000 per megawatt of nameplate capacity. As far as the questions of what happens if that nameplate number changes, I believe their payment in lieu of tax would change with that nameplate number. Whether they're likely to change that, I don't have that information, not something I was able to find. As far as if they just produce less versus the nameplate, I believe it's the nameplate is what they would pay baseline. Important thing to keep in mind with this exemption is that it is a 20-year exemption. That's where the estimate that I provided of the tax over the 20 years, that's why the 20-year number is used. From what I can tell, these facilities typically have a life of 20 to 40 years before they need to start replacing the solar equipment. So I don't know when they would replace it. I don't know if they would replace it with better equipment. I don't know if it would be more valuable equipment. I don't know if they replace it 10 or 15 years and that increases or decreases the nameplate. I just don't know that information. I couldn't find those answers out there. This is a very new exemption. This was passed in 2023. The first one was granted this summer in August, so no one has paid the payment in lieu of tax yet. This is a process that would start for the first applicants next year. From everything I understand, payment in lieu of taxes would become a lien on the property if they don't pay it, similar to not paying the regular property taxes. So it really seems to just be a simplified payment method from what I can tell. As far as the revenue projections, at the stated current 81.945 nameplate megawatts at $7,000 per megawatt, it'd be $573,000, $615 per year for the 20 years. Brings us to an 11-year or 20-year total of $11,472,000. Below that, on my estimates, I broke down year by year. This is using the State Tax Commission's depreciation table based on the original valuation that I'm putting on the property. I'm putting a value of the property a little over $60,750,000, and this is just for the solar equipment. There's things such as the substations, pavements, transmissions lines, those are not covered by this. This exemption just covers the solar equipment itself. Those items would be taxed ad valorem just as regular property. So this is just for the solar equipment. It depreciates, as I said, each year based on the State Tax Commission's table, which I believe I'm required to use to value this property. So there may be some back and forth on what my original valuation is. I'm comfortable saying that's probably where I put it because I'm the one putting the valuation on there. So these are my estimates. As far as anything outside of this is the best I was able to come up with based on the available information, based on reading through the laws, any research I could find. I did contact the other jurisdictions that have granted these. I unfortunately didn't do a lot of this research, so I didn't have a lot of people to bounce this off of. And again, this is the first year these have been granted, so no one has paid the PIL payment yet, so this is all pretty new. You know, big picture, this is a lot less revenue the first, I think, 5 years. It starts to get close by year 6 and 7, and then after that, the revenue is higher for the township than it would be otherwise. So long term, this is increased revenue for the township. Short term, it's decreased revenue. I know it's a lot of information, a lot of maybes and we don't knows, but does you have any questions for me?
I do have a question.
Yes.
So this is personal property tax, so it all goes to the township. This isn't gonna be divvied up between the schools and everyone, this is what we will be getting?
So the language in the law is that this is basically prorated as if it was a regular tax. So let's say 10% of it goes to county operating. Typically, 10% of the PILT would go to county operating. So it's still proportionally spread the same as it would. So, yeah, it's not more of it going to the township. I think we have to keep the same proportions. How that mechanism works, I don't know if you've looked into it. I don't know how that would work exactly. Again, this is very new, so I don't know that anyone really knows exactly how this would work. An important point is that this is industrial personal property, so there is no school operating and there is no state education tax villages. And that will be the case whether the exemption is granted or not. That's just something I wanted to point out, because there's been a lot of questions of how much would go to the schools. It'd basically just be the typical amount for industrial personal, so they would still get the school debt millage, which for this district is a pretty good amount, so that's what they would get out of it.
And, okay, so, I'm just trying to, so.
Turn your
if-
mic on.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so this is a law, so if we were to vote it down, what happens in that case?
I believe there's an appeal process. I couldn't find a lot of information on that. I know Whitetail's tax representative is here, Ryan Shannon. Do you have an answer to that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, and I'd be happy to address the board generally on some of these other questions as well. But as far as an appeal process, there's an appeal to the State Tax Commission in the event you vote it down. But the statute is voluntary and discretionary, so it's unlikely they would ever overturn you on that, frankly. So to the extent you have concerns and want to discuss, we're happy to do that. We think the numbers are pretty compelling here, but to the extent you vote it down, it's probably not going anywhere. The statute's unclear on whether we can reapply and things like that anyway, so.
So what's the better beneficial long-term for the town community? That's what as far as income for this. Because, you know, I mean, it's like some of them have said, is you go out 20 years or whatever, and it dilapidates or whatever, are they gonna continue to pay that amount, or is it just gonna be a liability on the community?
From what I can tell, that's where the township really starts to win out, is further down the road. Is the nameplate capacity, it shouldn't really decrease, I would think, unless they replace it with inferior equipment, which I would think this type of technology is going to stay the same or improve. But I don't really know the answer to that. And that's why we really start to see the big revenue difference. You know, when you get to year 12, if we just had the regular ad valorem taxes, then it's $112,000 a year for the last several years, versus the $573 of the exemptions granted. So that's why, even though there's a big drop immediately, township ends up, almost $3 million more total revenue over the 20 years. So it's kind of sacrificing a little bit up front to get more long-term. I believe we have a decommissioning agreement if they, for
We
some
do
reason,
have, I brought it.
exited this.
We have a decommissioning agreement that states that if it goes away for whatever reason, they're gonna bring that property back to status. So I did have another question, Chris. So am I understanding you correctly when you say that this is only on the solar panels? So that we would
Solar-
still get,
Solar equipment, yeah, so
Okay.
inverters, things like that, so most of the majority of the equipment, yeah.
but we would still get the tax on the substations and the
Yeah, so let's say they put a big parking lot, say they put an extra building there for something, that would be taxable. The land itself is still taxable. This land will be moving from agricultural with an agricultural exemption to industrial vacant. So they'll lose the qualified agricultural exemption. So the schools will see a boost in income from that. But that happens regardless of whether or not the exemption is granted.
Okay, very good.
So I wanted to clarify on the nameplate capacity, and Wendy brought it up. So you based your calculation on if we would get that total 81,945 megawatts, and that would carry through for all the years, if that was maintained for that amount.
It means, yeah,
And Wendy's question was, well, I think Robert asked it too, if we went below that, would that adjust? So that calculation at 81 may not hold.
that's my understanding,
So
yes.
we don't
If
know.
they change the capacity, then that would change the payment, yes.
You're saying it will? Or
That would be
are
my
we-
understanding, yes.
So
Oh,
if it,
okay, so if it goes down, then it would be,
but if it went higher, then we would get more.
Yeah.
Well, the way I understood it, nameplate capacity with the state is the most they can produce under perfect conditions.
Yeah.
so it would never go above that.
And I wouldn't think it'd be able to go below it either if it's in a contract.
Can I address that, if that's okay? I think you have it all correct in terms of the nameplate
Hang on a
capacity.
minute,
It's
hang
not
on,
about,
hang on a minute. Can everybody hear? Can
yeah,
everybody
and let me
hear?
introduce myself just for everybody. My name's Ryan Shannon, I'm with the law firm of Dickinson right out of Lansing. I'm
Come
outside.
up to the mic.
Absolutely, yeah. Hi, folks. My name's Ryan Shannon, I'm with the law firm of Dickinson right out of Lansing, Michigan, and I'm outside tax counsel for Whitetail Solar. The nameplate capacity is what dictates the 7,000 per megawatt payment. And that's what your assessors use to project out those revenues. It's not the actual capacity due to things like we have a cloudy winter and we're producing less. It's the nameplate, which is the maximum. That nameplate capacity, we have no reason to think that's gonna change, but, you know, it could. I mean, we don't know, you know, there could be a hailstorm, there could be diminished demand. It's unlikely the way energy prices are currently going that there's gonna be a change, but I don't wanna tell you that that's the one thing the statute says could change the output. The point I'll make is that if, let's say you had nameplate capacity actually reduce, that would mean there was a retirement of equipment on the site. And once it's retired and taken off site or retired and put on site in that capacity, your ad valorem taxes would also reduce. So in trying to compare apples to oranges on those two projections, you'd also be losing money under the 20-year projection for your ad valorem taxes.
So what you're saying though is it could happen.
Right,
circumstances.
that's, the statute certainly allows it to happen, we have no reason to think it will, especially
Right.
with the way energy demand is. That's the one uncertainty that the statute leaves in place under the PILT, is that the nameplate capacity could change. Every year your assessor has to put in a report that says this is the capacity.
Right.
Right. Now, the statute here is designed to solve two problems, really. The first problem is that because of the nature of this equipment, you get a lot of revenue right at the outset. It's all brand new electronic equipment. And then by year 10 or so, 90%, well actually 88% under the depreciation schedule is gone. So you get, under normal ad valorem, if you get $1 million that first year, by year 10 you're only getting about 100,000 on that equipment. That means you get a great big feast at the beginning and then just morsels by the end. The PILT puts us all on a diet. It says you're gonna get a square meal every year. We know the exact amount, it's 573,000 and change. Every single year, it makes it much easier for you to budget, makes it much easier for us to budget. It's important to my client for things like getting financing, for things like predicting the cost of the energy they're gonna produce. So in terms of why would we ever pay more, well, assuming all the projections hold steady, which I think is, there's some danger in that, making the 20-year projection is really challenging, but assuming they're all holding steady, why would we pay more? That certainty is a huge benefit to us. The second reason the statute was adopted was that uncertainty. And I think it's really unfair that the statute asks the assessor to make a 20-year projection. I'm a property tax attorney, we don't do 20-year projections. So many things can change year to year. They can change to your benefit, they can change to my benefit. The STC changed the depreciation schedule last year. They could do that again in a few years. Your school debt could retire and not be revoted, or it could be, voted even higher. There's a lot of uncertainty. The PILT gives you pretty good certainty about what we're gonna be paying in 20 years. The current projection, a 20-year projection, as we can do it now, I can almost assure you that would not be what it is in 20 years, because your millages are gonna change, the SDC is gonna change guidance, other things are gonna change. So the key benefit to both of us is that flattening of payments, so that you have predictable budgeting to do, and removing that uncertainty.
So speaking of uncertainty, this is Michigan, so what if we have a giant hailstorm and half that gets wiped out, what happens then?
Yeah, so let's assume there's a few different outcomes that are possible. One would be, the company decides at that point, or the successor that owns it at that point, or whoever, decides at that point not to replace it, and the nameplate capacity is diminished. Then that wouldn't be personal property tax that's there in the ad valorem scenario, but it also would come out of the PILT under the statute when it's recertified the following year. So, again, apples to oranges, it's a little hard to say where that comes out, but it's not like you'd be necessarily losing out in that scenario compared to what you'd get otherwise. If the insurance covers it and they replace the panels, yeah, that's brand new equipment that wouldn't normally be taxed at the higher rate in the first year. So that would be a risk you'd be taking, because you're locked into the PILT. Even if we replace new panels, we don't get that new higher value, but that's one of 1,000 things that is unpredictable at this point.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I have a question. What happens if a successor purchases in 5 years? Are they locked into the 20-year PILT?
Yes, the statute says it's 20 years even for a successor. And that's, the gentleman who commented earlier about the litigation risk and the challenges. Every property owner every year has an opportunity to go to the tribunal and say, I think you're overcharging me for my value. And under the PILT, we're locked in. So both us and the successor can't go to the tribunal and say, we think you're overcharging us. We're saying it's gonna be 7,000 per nameplate capacity. There's nothing to fight about there. So administratively, it's a lot, there's just a lot less risk to both sides, a lot less fighting. You're gonna get one tax bill that's gonna go to the project, not to the 20-odd parcels that are included. It's paid once a year rather than twice a year. It's just administratively less.
Well, the biggest benefit would be you're locked in at a rate for 20 years. In a climate where last 6 years, tax has been going up every year. So that's where you're gonna, in the long run, you're gonna benefit.
Yeah, that is certainly a possibility, is that the delta here could all be eaten up. The delta here also, school villages have been voted down in a number of jurisdictions, so that's a risk too. From our perspective, if that school village
That's the
doesn't.
reason we get more up front for PILT, the 3.5 million more in 20 years.
Yeah,
Because it's a risk. I mean, both people take, but it's more than likely gonna benefit Whitetail with the climate that's been going lately.
yeah, with your assessor's projections, you'd have to have a pretty big tax swing. And I can't tell you standing here today, I certainly don't want to misrepresent you. That is certainly a possibility. It's also a possibility, like I said, school millages, maybe it goes down, maybe it doesn't get revoted. In which case, that delta's even bigger.
Yeah.
But the certainty we both get is I think more valuable. Frankly, it's, if we look at a scenario where we're gonna be paying more, I mean, you have to assume a lot to get us to a point where the true dollars are more. The certainty's still worth it to us. I mean, it locks us in.
Did you wanna add something to that, Chris?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, so like a house is typically going up in value, that's why the taxes are going up.
Yeah.
This equipment depreciates very
Yeah.
fast. So by the end of the 20 years, these panels may be done for. They may be replacing them with brand new ones at that point. So contrary to your house, our tax rates go up a little bit. School debt millage here is kind of big, that's been passed in the last several years. As far as the value, this is kind of the inverse of your house. This goes down in value every year. Yeah, our millage rates stay kind of about the same general range.
So bottom line, the long-term benefit, will it benefit our community? That's the biggest question. And has anybody else turned this down?
I'm not aware of anybody who's turned it down. It's very brand new. Certainly possible that some communities have voted it down. I think there's only like a dozen communities that are considering it at this point. The first one was back in August that voted it through. And in terms of will it benefit the community, I think what your assessor is telling you, and I don't want to mischaracterize it, so please jump in, Chris, is that from a true dollars perspective, based on the best information he's got right now, yes, the true dollars come out ahead. What I'm telling you is that the value to my client, and I think to the township, is certainty. You get a square meal every year, it's much easier to predict, much easier to budget. I think that's a benefit for the community.
So another question I have, so the clerk's office was aware that, that you guys would be applying for this exemption, and I'm not exactly clear per Robert's, comment, did that come in through the development plan, through the site plan, the planning commission, where?
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't speak to what was represented before about not applying for an exemption, and if there was a change, about the only thing I could say was that this statute is so new, it maybe wasn't on the radar when those conversations were happening before. The PILT is brand new, and it's not, it's an exemption in the sense that you don't pay ad valorem, but it's a payment in lieu of taxes. It's replacing one tax with another. So it's, I would characterize it more as a restructuring rather than applying for an exemption.
Yeah, I'm just curious, like when, like how I kinda knew, we knew there had a heads up on it, but I didn't know if it was something we read from the development plan or.
Unfortunately, I can't
Yeah,
answer that
okay.
question, I don't know.
Okay.
We can let them know, I know what's that.
I'll be here if you have any other questions as you're deliberating. Thank you for the
very
opportunity.
much.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, that's different.
Did you have anything else to add to this, or?
Appreciate it. No.
All right, 5 years.
All right, well, we'll make a motion to close the,
Sure.
we'll make a motion to close the, Augusta Township public hearing for the application for the solar energy facility exemption
Yeah,
certification.
it goes with money, so 20.
Adams,
We were talking, I'm sorry.
pay attention now, yes.
Who seconded?
All right, we're gonna make a motion. Ready?
Yes.
Make a motion to close the public hearing for the application for the solar energy facility exemption certificate. I'm gonna do a roll call. Adams,
Yes.
Buick,
Yes.
Gipper,
Yes.
Gosling,
Yes.
Green, Crane,
Yes.
Wallace, yes. Okay, so what we're gonna do now, we're gonna do the,
All the regular.
regular mowing meeting, no order. We gotta do roll call again on this one, for the record, or no?
No, it's just 7.
Call the meeting to order. Did the pledge of allegiance already, everybody's here, agenda approval.
I'll make a motion to approve.